So other moms want to share things that they've been learning about this week?
Well, I've had kind of a thought-provoking thing this week. I don't know if someone in here that posted it or if it was a friend. It was just on Facebook, and I think just because where I am in life right now, just transitioning and trying to find a normal routine, a new normal routine, and then with what's just kind of happening along in the world at the moment, just been praying what to do and, just try to go about it. And there was this post that said, did you know that Mormon lived his entire life while the Nephites were wicked and the Lamanites waged war against them? He never experienced righteousness and peace in the land. He didn't really have any super successful missions where he converted a bunch of people, right? His world was obviously extreme turmoil, war, and hatred, and all of that, as we know. And she just said, but Mormon never had a normal world, and yet he still found a way to be one of the most righteous individuals in history. And I don't know. I was just thinking about that, thinking, I guess there is like what in our head, what we think is normal or what's our new normal. And especially what's going, like I said, I don't know. I'm around at the moment a lot of my friends who are a little older, obviously, they're just talking about second comings and stuff all the time. And, this is going on in the world and, things like that. And it's, what's our new normal? And is this going to be normal now? And then the girl's doing whatever normal. You're fine. You're fine. And I don't know. I just thought, well, I guess it doesn't matter where I am in my life. I just have to make sure I'm still righteous and I'm still, doing what the Lord's, for whatever normal might happen or change or evolve into. I don't know. It was just it just made me think this week, that whole, I don't know. I just never, I'm reading the Book of Mormon again, but I'm only in Alma 17. So I haven't made it to Mormon again. And so I just forget, like, oh my heavens. Yeah. Sorry, I live on the loudest street ever. So,
You're fine.
But, and my chickens are super loud. I apologize. But, so anyway, that is just really, just made me think this week of where am I righteously in the chaos around me and my new normal that's happening.
It makes sense. Yeah. Absolutely makes sense. I was directed to a podcast this week, and I was just trying to find it so I could share that with you too. It was so good, and it kind of goes along with what you were saying, and it's on the Latter-day Saint Women podcast, which is a podcast that's associated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But it has some really good positive messages for women. And the one, episode 80, is entitled "Distract, Discourage, and Distance: Recognizing the Tools of the Adversary." And a couple of really great things came up in that podcast. One was a story that she told about being in New York, living in New York at the time of 9/11, and her husband working downtown, and just kind of the days that followed being, 24/7 watching the news, and one morning waking up and being so overwhelmed and feeling so I can't remember the words that she used, so I won't insert words for her, but she got on her knees and just asked Heavenly Father, what do I do? Please help me. I'm kind of overwhelmed here. And the advice that she was given, what the Spirit told her was, turn off the TV. And she said, well, I can't do that. And she got it again, turn off the TV. And she did that. And what a difference that made for her. She said, she went on to say, I asked, but I need to know. I need to know what's going on. I need to update my husband. I need to know if I need to grab my kids, throw them in the car, and take them across the bridge into New Jersey. I need to know. And the message that she got was, I'll let you know. And how timely is that message right now? That reminder for us that we've got the greatest source of information. I don't know if you're getting this. I don't know if I'm breaking up too much for you to get that story. I hope so. If not, somebody let me know. Say, like, stop. No.
Yeah. Well, can you put it in the link, the podcast of that? I would mind listening to that this week. That'd be great.
Yeah, it was really good. And then the other thing she brought up was that one of Satan's tools is um, dividing women, keeping them apart, distancing them, not making them feel like there's not a connection. And so obviously what would the opposite of that would be a very effective tool, right? Would be the connection. Women can. I will put that podcast down in the chat while somebody else shares. Okay, anybody else want to share? I don't know if you're not hearing my my input here, but please go ahead and share anything that you are currently thinking about, learning about. What are you doing that's feeding your soul? What is going on in your own life? And Daisy, welcome. It's nice to see you joining us too.
Both Daisy and Paige, you guys look like you're out in the forest in this beautiful place. Your background, I can see Paige and Daisy's outside. Oh, so nice.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of showed up late. I was out running errands and lost track of time, but I'm here.
good. We're glad. It's nice to have you here. Okay, Cadence.
Okay, I'm trying to find the page, but I'm in the Joy book. Sorry, you can't see because of my virtual background here. Okay, so I was reading, I just opened some random page just to see what was in it. And I was reading about how, let's see. So it's all about happiness. And this chapter is called Happiness, the Redemption of Mankind from Drudgery Through Tools and Machinery. So while I was reading this, it was just amazing. It was saying to consider the relation between the tools we have and the happiness that we can have, because of this increase of machinery, the time has come when all have the leisure to grow ripe and opportunity to be wise. I just love this. With tools come abundance. And with that quote again about how much that one princess gave for one book, it was like all this grain, all these flocks and herds just for one book in German. And how nowadays that we can have a book for $1 or whatever it was in here, or a few dollars. I can't read the whole thing, but it was just so good because it was talking about it just made me feel so grateful for what I have and realize, whoa, life is really good and I can do all these things. It's so weird because I can so easily get into this mindset of just like, laundry and blah, blah, blah. But really, everything we have is a gift, and it's so simple to do everything compared to how it was. And it made me feel so grateful because I was reading this, and it was not even 150 years ago that nobody had anything we have today. And it's just pages and pages and pages of how machines have helped us so much, not to just be stuck in drudgery, but that we can read all these books, we can do all these things, we can travel wherever we want to so quickly. And it was funny because it doesn't even have the modern stuff now. I was talking about how, oh, someday we might be able to talk with Mars. And like, we put so many robots on Mars now. But it was just funny because it just makes me appreciate so much. And it made me feel happier because I realized what I had. Sorry, that was kind of long-winded, but I'm just excited about this chapter, and I didn't summarize it very well.
No, I loved it. I loved it. Well, you know that I have no idea what the word summary means. Emily, were you coming on to share something? Cadence, thank you so much. I love that. And actually it reminded me, sorry, Emily, it reminded me of our discussion in the Marco Polo group where we were talking about kitchen gadgets. You know, was it Rachel that started that one up? And somehow we ended up just talking about gratitude for all of these different things that we have and use every day. You know, it was these machines that do free up our time, give us opportunities if we choose to use them, right? So that's the hard part, using to make it.
I was thinking the same thing. And we were all sharing these kitchen gadgets that were, like fancy new things. And I think it was Emily was like, I really love my dishwasher. And I was like, oh my gosh, I totally take my dishwasher for granted. And yeah, like those things are amazing, but we just get so used to them. But yeah, how grateful we need to be for these things that allow us more time. Like,
I'm so grateful I don't have to wash underwear by hand. Can I just say that? Or diapers, or, like how my parents had to. Maybe not by hand. I don't know what they did actually. Maybe they had a service.
Well, they had
Even that, like.
So I have washed my laundry by hand for about 16 months.
Oh, wow.
And it is a lot of work, but it's also really like meditative because you just know you have time and you're going to be in this groove and you can't do anything else.
Was that for fun or a challenge? I tried that.
Yeah, for fun. I just decided to wash all my laundry. No, I lived in the Philippines for about 16 months, and I lived in a rural area. We didn't have power a lot. We didn't have water sometimes. But yeah, I washed my clothes by hand, and I did not realize how much time my washing machine saved. I hate laundry. Before that, I hated laundry, folding laundry mostly, but basically in a warm climate, so no coats, no blankets, you're planning on 3 hours plus a week per person on laundry. So if you have 6 kids, think about how much laundry you're doing.
Wow.
a week. And so I learned to really appreciate my washing machine because I only have, a couple of kids, and that's a lot of time to do laundry every week. And we don't live in an area where it's warm. So we do have, winter coats and socks and blankets that we'd have to wash. And all of those things just take more and more time to wash. So yeah, I appreciate that people back in the day had a laundry day and they would wear their clothes a lot more than we do. They'd wear one outfit for a couple days or, all week, and then have their Sunday outfit or a laundry outfit, because you do not want to be washing all the clothes all the time.
Wow, that's incredible that you had that experience. Share that with us. And Marley, nice to have you with us.
Thanks, everybody. It's fun to be here. I'm doing a bunch of stuff, and I couldn't tell who was talking about doing laundry. Which person?
That was
that?
Melissa, who joined us Tuesday.
Hey, Melissa. I was just thinking the flip of that. I mean, we were describing all the things that come into our life because to simplify our life, to make our life easier and better. But just as you were talking, Melissa, the thought flitted across my mind, what do we miss out on because of all those conveniences too? And it would be interesting. It just inspired me. I want to start thinking, what things can we add back in? I mean, like our dishwasher was broken for a while and we stood and washed dishes by hand. And there's a closeness that comes from doing that and an advantage. And I certainly am glad for my dishwasher. I got that repaired right away. But I love to be able to think about what are some of the good things of all that hard work and labor that used to happen.
Yeah, there are a lot of benefits. When we didn't have power, we didn't have any appliances at all. Normally we just had a refrigerator, but when the power went out, we didn't have that. And so we'd have to go to the market every single day for our food. And we'd have to walk an hour each way to the market. And then going to the market wasn't like Walmart. It wasn't like 3 aisles and you're done. It was, you had to go to this shop to get eggs, and then this shop to get rice, and then this shop to get vegetables, some vegetables, and then another shop for meat. And it took, a good solid hour of diligent work just to get your food. And then you had to walk an hour back home, and you got to know the shopkeepers, and you got to, know who had what you liked or didn't like, or deals or whatever. And then you'd have to, walk home. And then doing laundry is a social thing, even if you're doing it by yourself, because your neighbors see your line and you see their lines, and you know what clothes they have, and you know what days they wash, and you know who washes a certain way. There are different ways to hand wash, and people are super proud about it. And not having appliances just makes you be outside more, basically, whether you garden or going somewhere for food or whatever, and you don't have vehicles and you don't have a refrigerator. And even just washing, a lot of places had just outdoor kitchens. And so you'd be washing your dishes outside and preparing your food outside or cooking it outside. In one area, it was just really hot inside, and we had like a carport kind of on the side of our apartment. And so we just put our stove out there. We just had like a little propane stove and a table. We took our table outside, and we'd cook out there and eat all of our meals outside. And so all of our neighbors could see us all the time. And you wash your laundry outside, and because everything is done outside. And so since everyone's outside, there is a lot more socialization that goes on, and you just get to know a lot more people.
Yeah, I love that. I love the picture of that. And I love that all through everything you were saying, Melissa, Daisy has this big smile on her face and is just nodding her head. I think that sounds like the ideal life, Daisy. I'm going to share what Kate just wrote in here. I love that Heavenly Father made those things easier for us for the purpose of accomplishing his work. So we would be able to choose to use our time for family history, simple work, teaching our children, sharing the gospel. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think thinking about both sides of this, thinking about the positives of both sides, we could probably put together a better mix. I wonder if sometimes if we slowed ourselves down a little bit and created more of those opportunities to have more of the social, more of those connections with other people, that would be better. I think Emily's got
I was just going to say that having all those conveniences does save us time. And so it makes me think, what do I need to do with the time? And you've kind of, is it Cadence that you just read, kind of touched on that. So I think, I don't know, an example comes to mind for me is we had a car at one point that had a DVD player, and we were going on a long trip. So we put in a movie, the kids watched it. It was really nice. We made that same trip with another car, and it didn't have a DVD player. And so and they were within a few months of each other. So we could really compare and contrast the difference between the trip for our kids and for us. And it made me think about, so we have all these conveniences, but should we use them all the time? Like, was it Marley that said about washing dishes? My aunt had to remodel her kitchen, because she had some water damage from her dishwasher, and she decided not to put a dishwasher back in. She had 6 kids at home at the time, and she said it was wonderful because after dinner they had so much time together. Now her kids have left, and she's like, I'm remodeling my kitchen and I'm putting the dishwasher back in because I don't want to wash them by myself. And so that reason for not having dishwashers gone, so she's bringing it back in. And so I think we need to evaluate those conveniences and how to use them and when to use them so that they don't take away those wonderful things that families and that socialization that happens when we don't have them.
I love that.
And
Yeah,
the-
I think
oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was just looking in the Mothers of Influence in the September, the Mr. Rogers interview with him. He talks about the silence, that there's, you know, that to appreciate that silence, to appreciate the, you know, just being able to hone in that skill or, you know, basically, and to appreciate who's around you and what you have and all of that. I don't know, it was a great interview, but he has a little at the beginning, that little mark where he talks about kind of what you're talking about of appreciating and just being silent for a minute, you know, and listening. So go ahead, Melissa. Oh wait, and Melissa, we're in the Philippines because my sister went to San Pablo, or my daughter went to San Pablo.
I served in Isabela province and Ifugao province, Nueva Vizcaya. So I was in the north, just basically mountains and rice fields. I never saw the ocean. I was just in the midst of fields. So, but yes, I think we do have all these time savers, but we can either be entertained in our free time or find better ways to use it. And I started this book last night. Just a moment, bud. Just a moment. I started this book, let's see, Games and Songs of American Children. It's from the 1800s, 1890s, I think. But in reading it last night, the author said that the games that our children play today were often the games of the wealthy in the past, of the higher class. And he gave an example of the women in Queen Elizabeth's court, her maids of honor, were so bored sitting around all day with nothing to do because they didn't have any jobs or anything, that they loved playing the game tag. And so they were bored, they didn't have work to do, and so they filled their time with entertainment. And that working class obviously didn't have time for, you know, those sort of frivolities, but those games are things that children fill their time with because they're fun and entertaining and engaging and socializing. But yeah, when we do have all this extra time, do we fill it with, you know, those great things like family history and learning, or do we fill it with, you know, Netflix all day or entertainment?
So polite. I love it. I love hearing your children back. Yeah, there's an article that's associated with Well Educated Heart. It's on one of the pages. I found it, but it is under the section. A Mother's Influence under month 1. That makes sense. And it is in the section where it gives you things to read as you get down to the bottom of the page. And there's the selection that says, in the absence of the village, mothers struggle most. Really, really interesting. It's a really good read. But it talks about that. In the absence of the village, meaning not Hillary Clinton's depiction of a village, but this idea of the women being down at the river together, all doing their laundry and talking and connecting, and, you know, and really, really connecting and having these relationships that are the ones that strengthen us, that help us to not feel alone, that help us to like we were talking about the picture the other day, holding space for one another. Anyway, I don't know if any of you have read that and have any thoughts about that, but I love these ideas of what could we do with this time? How could we create some of those more connecting moments in our lives?
Lori, hear you very well, and maybe that's already been talked about. But that article that you referenced in the absence of a village women matter most, we use that on the MWA Getting Started page. We have some getting started resources, and I think it's a really interesting discussion to just invite a couple of your friends in person and just ask that question that I think Lori just asked too, which is, you know, where do we feel empty, and how can we connect better? And that's an easy way to reach out to women right near you and kind of find out their heart, give them an opportunity to share their heart. And I've seen some really important and meaningful and vulnerable discussions come from something like that. So I didn't mean to hijack this meaningful discussion, but just that very article is a way to connect with people right near you.
Anybody else? I really don't want to talk much since I'm breaking up so much. So go ahead, Daisy, or I'll go Linnell. Go ahead, Linnell first, then Daisy. I think we want to hear from you.
This morning I was listening to Marlene's podcast about notebooking. And then I read her post on Facebook about how she's discouraged that moms think it's too hard and give up and they want to switch to a curriculum. And first of all, a few thoughts I had about the notebooking podcast that Marlene did. I feel like, well, it was inspiring to me to hear her thoughts and what she gets out of notebooking. And the biggest thing that stuck out to me that I needed to hear was we need to simplify our pages, because one of the concerns she had is that, or she mentioned that in the beginning when she was first talking about it, when My America Storybook first came out, lots of moms were sharing their pages, and they were beautiful pieces of artwork and they were very elaborate. And so the thought that she had was that's probably the end of their notebooking, because it was so much work and it would be hard to keep up. And so as a member of the Facebook group, looking at other people's, I felt like that was the standard. I felt like, oh, I need to do something really elaborate like that. And so that was one of my struggles with notebooking, that I felt like I needed to make it a very elaborate page. And so for her to remind me of that was helpful to realize, okay, I just need to keep it simple. And the point is the thought and the saving, not necessarily the showing of it. And so I mean, that leads me to lots of other thoughts with this discussion, that when we simplify things, it helps us to focus on the most important. And so if we are distracted by things that make life easier, or if they take away from our time or our energy, or in whatever way, if it's not working for us, then it's not good for us anymore. So just a thought about being wise in what we're using and when we're using it, how we're using it, all to simplify the things that we're doing.
That was wonderful. I'm typing, so in case you can't hear me. The principle of stewardship, that comes into play all the time. That comes into my head. Idea of being wise stewards. Daisy, do you mind coming on and sharing?
Yeah, no problem. I don't know if you can hear me. My neighbor is doing I think cutting some trees down or something. But when Linnell was speaking, I thought of a quote, and it's in the back of the first volume of the Well-Educated Heart Reference Library. But it says, things that matter most must never be at the mercy of things that matter least. And I felt that way with nature journaling. I'm like, I could never draw a flower like some of these ladies do. But that's not really, the art is not necessarily what matters most. It's like what Linnell said, it's the thoughts and the saving and the collecting. that really matters. But another quote I wanted to share by Henry Van Dyke, he said, "Those who would see wonderful things must often be ready to travel alone." And I've thought about that a lot in my life, because where I live, there's not a lot of members of the church, and then there's also just not a lot of homeschoolers. Not Nebraska is kind of we're still transitioning, and so I am a member of the church, was a homeschooler, and now am part of the Mothers of Influence. And yeah, you have to, sometimes you're quite alone in the things that you know are right, or in just trying to feed your own heart. And but we get to see wonderful things, and then we get to have Zoom meetings, and the Lord is, I think, opening up ways for us to meet, even though we're physically maybe far apart.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we're so happy that we have you with us, Daisy. You just bring some sunshine and lightness here, and it's great. Oh, Abby. Abby, you had something you wanted to share. Did you?
Oh yeah, hey, I don't know. Can you guys hear me okay? Kind of loud here. Just Linnell reminded me of like notebooking, and it's something I don't really focus on with my kids, and I feel like I'm pretty good at journaling. I guess notebooking is a little different, but I decided to get them little journals for this school year, and they're just blank paper, blank journals, and they love to draw. And so I've just, every time we read a book or are reading a story or reading the scriptures, we just take it out and they draw pictures. And they're 4 and 7, and my 1-year-old does it too, and they just love it. Like, they love it to pieces. And my husband came home one day and they were just like, my 4-year-old was hugging his journal and saying, "Thank you for getting this for me." And it was just so cute.
I love that. I love that response. I love all of these stories where you hear the children responding to these opportunities. I just love that. Did any of you read Shannon's post this morning on the Well-Educated Heart that directs you to her blog, where she talks about the 100 days of Well-Educated Heart, Marley? Is that what that's called? But she shared a story about her daughter. Are any of you hearing me? Does anybody else know that story that could tell that story? Anybody else read that? No? Can you hear me?
I can hear you a little bit. It's still pretty choppy. Are you talking about Marlene talking about her daughter moving there and so?
It's Shannon. Shannon was talking about her daughter giving up nap time and then, getting older, but still wanting to hear the story. No?
No. Okay, we can hear that part now. That's not what I was thinking of.
Okay. No, she was just talking about her daughter wanting her to read a story to her, her 7-year-old daughter. And so Shannon got out a couple of picture books, and her daughter was saying, "No, no, no, the other one, the other storybook." And she went looking around the house. The 7-year-old daughter went looking around the house for this book, brings back the Scandinavian Tales, the book from the Forgotten Classics, and said, "No, this one, Mom. Even though it doesn't have any pictures, I just love, love, love this." I don't know if you got that, but I loved that story. We forget how much joy these things bring to all of our hearts, ours and anybody else that we share them with. It might take a little bit of time for their hearts to warm, but sorry for the shopping. Okay, any other thoughts? Anybody else want to pop on? Because you really don't want to hear from me today.
I might have something again.
Yeah, great.
a couple of weeks, I haven't been on a couple of weeks, I apologize. A couple of weeks ago, I was at my sister-in-law's birthday party. She's turning 50 something. And she's got obviously grown kids, and one of them has their own, they're starting to have their own kids. And one of her kids gave her something from a book that they used to read to them when they were little. And what I'm going to tell you is what I witnessed is the extra effort in being connected with your kids. And they loved the it's the book where it's the animals and they have like little jobs, and they're Richard Scarry's books. Oh, I'm like, what are they? They're like animals. Yes, okay, Richard Scarry books. So he has different books, and so Jenny says to her husband, "Can you go get these 2 books, and I want you to read it to everybody?" And it's just the family. And he's like, no, but they're performers, so of course he's going to do it. And so he reads the books, and each one of them, the character has their own, I'm going to talk like this, and I'm going to talk like this, and it's just different. I'm British, I'm Indian, I've got a Spanish accent, I've got, whatever, right? And he knew them all. And I look over to his children, who are now in their mid-20s. And you could see the smile, and you could see their lips, like, because they're reading along with him. And it just planted the seed, like, God, did I take that extra little time to make a little bit more of an effort in that? You know what I mean? And because what I saw and what I witnessed is time, doing something a little bit more than just reading, than just, well, we're just going to get this done right here. Because there are days, and I know this was just when my kids were little, that I would try to do voices and stuff, but I would hurry, or I'd only do half the book, or because I'm tired, or I got this child screaming, or I've got, whatever. And I don't know why I'm sharing this, but it was just really, really cool to see their grown kids mouth the words along and smile as if I saw them as they were 7 again. And I was just like, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. Just going the extra step, just going, that extra love of softening their hearts, softening your hearts, so you guys can connect. And I don't know, it was just beautiful. So I don't know where I'm going. Okay.
No, it's beautiful.
I popcorn.
And that had such an impact on you as you watch their faces. I love that. I'm so happy.
What's that quote? Someday you'll look back and the little things are the big things. That's not the whole quote, but that's what I think of, Amy, when you're talking. And Lori's quote below that, the you never know. Like, my parents just had their 80th birthdays, and we had this big party, and each of the 7 kids kind of told different memories. And it's so interesting to me what sticks with each of us from that. And it wasn't big things. It was, Dad took me to the dump, or my mom always let me choose the cereals. And look, I get weepy thinking about those little things. But I think that's what you're saying, Amy, or at least what that caused me to think about was, it's the little things that we do for ourselves and in our families and our children, but you have no idea which little thing it's going to be. And Lori, I think you hit the nail on the head. My kids are getting older, and they do forget, thankfully, some of the things that I remember and wish that they wouldn't, and they have. That isn't in them all the way. You just have to have more of those happy little things than other things. But that's joy to me. That ties into joy. And joy can be doing laundry together and doing the dishes together too. Good reminder. Thanks, Amy. You want to have what you wrote there, Lori? Yeah. Lori says, yes, our children go out of our homes with so much more than we realize that we gave them. You'll be amazed at how much good they remember, and gratefully, how much of the negative you remember has no place in their memories. That was profound, Lori.
It's a miracle that I'm grateful for every day. Hey, well, I do, on our Marco Polo, I showed that picture and I want to talk about it more, but I want to do it on a day where we have a good connection. So I decided to pause that until next week. We can continue to discuss it on the Marco Polo group, and then we'll discuss that next week. I think it has great significance. Marley, that's the painting that you have up on that post about passing favors. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Linnell to wrap up. And Linnell, wrap up and end the whole thing. I'm not going to come on again, okay?
A lot of what we've been talking about today has been about choices and about how we use our choice or ability to choose to bring the most joy and the most happiness in our life. What appliances do I want to choose to use to make my life easier? Or what things do I want to read to bring more joy? Or what life path do I need to follow in order to find the most happiness? And Lori posted something on Facebook earlier this week, and many of you may have read it, but I'm going to read it here again for those of you who haven't and anyone who may be watching. And this story really touched my heart for a lot of reasons, and I'll share that after I read this to you. So it says, every month, Martin's parents took a trip to see grandma and came home on the same train the next day. One day, the child said to his parents, I'm already grown up. Can I go to my grandma's alone? After a brief discussion, his parents accepted. They stood with him as he waited for the train to exit. They said goodbye to their son and gave him some tips through the window. Martin repeated to them, I know, I've been told this more than 1,000 times. As the train was about to leave, his father murmured in his ear, son, if you feel bad or insecure, this is for you. And he put something in his pocket. Now Martin was alone, sitting on the train as he had wanted, without his parents for the first time. He was admiring the landscape out the window. Around him, some unknowns pushed themselves in. They made a lot of noise. They got in and out of the train car. The conductor made some comments about him being alone. One person looked at him with eyes of sadness. Martin was feeling more uneasy with every minute that passed, and now he was scared. He felt cornered and alone. He put his head down, and with tears in his eyes, he remembered his dad had put something in his pocket. Trembling, he searched for what his father had given him. Upon finding the piece of paper, he read it. Son, I'm in the last train car. That's how life is. We must let our kids go. We must let them try new things, but we always like to be in the last car watching in case they are afraid or in case they find obstacles and don't know what to do. We want to be close to them as long as we are still alive. I thought that was just beautiful, and it brought tears to my eyes. Right now I'm away from my children, so I had to leave them and let them grow up and let them go for a little bit. I didn't have to, I chose to. I think it's good for them, but I missed them a little more after reading that. And it touched me on so many levels. And I'll just share a few of them because I'm sure you had some of your own takeaways that were meaningful as well. But one of the things is I thought of my husband and how he could have been the one to just be in that last train. I thought of how he is trying to be an honorable and good and loving father, and how much warmth is in that he was prepared, that he gave it to his son, that he thought of how the mom didn't say, no, I'm sorry, you're not ready for that. She didn't say, no, stay home. She didn't say, no, I'm going, and so often. And I want to say, you're not old enough yet. No, you don't know enough. No, it's not safer. I'll give whatever excuse that I want to be there to protect you. And so this is teaching me, or it helped me to realize that it's good, it's healthy, it's imagine what that boy felt to feel that his mom trusts him, but then to just be so close. And I also think about how I need to allow my children more chances to choose, to give them that space. And so this choice of, will I choose what's best for me? Will I allow my child to choose what's best for them? Will I let them take their own path? When I am given the opportunity to choose, I feel more joy. When I'm forced to do something, I feel stifled and I don't feel that joy. And finally, what comes to mind is our Father in heaven, who loves us so much and who lets us go, who gives us opportunities to learn, to grow, to be stretched, to be on our own for a little bit, to experience the world and the sadness. And he still loves us. He still gives us tools to help us and to guide us along the way, to comfort us. He gives us friends. He gives us mentors. He gives us music and art and poetry and story. All of these things to help us know that he's in the last train car. And so I think this is a wonderful, beautiful work to be a part of, to be women, to be friends, to be mothers. And as we tend to our hearts, I think others can tell, they can feel it, they gravitate to us. And that's what we want for our children as well. They want us, we want them to come to us and feel safe with us and to be that and to do that for others as well. And that's all I wanted to share with you. I'll just read this that Lori said. She said, I love you all more than you know. Thank you for being my dear friends. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and we'll see you next time.